Good morning. It is Conversations with Coach CK. We are talking about food today. I want to talk about nutrition. I want to talk about fat loss, and I want to talk about getting bulky. Just talking to a client yesterday about lifting weights and if that is an appropriate way to lose fat. Because the client doesn't want to get bulky. And what about cardio? So let's talk about cardio and let's talk about weights and see what's the best way to lose fat and keep it off. Because there really is a lot of people that will have you believe that it's very complicated, that it's challenging, that it's confusing, and honestly, it's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple if you know some specifics. And so that's why it's super important to be able to hire a coach that knows about the quantity game and knows about the laws of thermodynamics and knows about that piece of the puzzle, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're keto, if you're vegetarian, if you're paleo, like all that stuff matters. But if your goal is body composition, you have to understand the number side of it. I don't care how healthy you think you're eating. You could eat an apple and a whole jar of almond butter and be at 5,000 calories and get fat eating paleo. It's just the facts. So what do we got here? We've got quantity of food. We've got quality of food. These two things are both very important for how you feel and how energized you are, how bloated you are, how inflamed. Like those things all matter. But when it comes to losing fat and gaining muscle, these numbers have to be in a certain ratio. They have to be in a certain quantity. So if somebody says, should I do strength training? I don't want to get bulky. If we're trying to lose fat, gaining muscle and doing strength training, I would say is probably the number one most important thing you could do. Why do I say that? There's a skeletal muscle mass. The amount of muscle you have in your body directly affects your basal metabolic rate. Your basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories that you need in order to sort of sustain your body's activities, right? How much calories do you burn on a daily basis just living, right? Just being alive. The more muscle you have, the higher that number is. Okay, why is that important? Because you want to be able to eat foods that you like, and you want to be able to eat a good amount of food so that you don't feel as if you're starving yourself. You want to be able to eat foods that are enjoyable to you. If you do that, you won't be on a quote unquote diet. You will actually be able to eat in a way that helps your body thrive. So the more muscle we can build, the higher the BMR, the more food we get to feed ourselves in order to sustain that new muscle. And then we can avoid that yo-yo. What happens if I do excessive cardio without strength training? If I go into a big calorie deficit and I do not do weight training, and I'm not doing any kind of resistance training to break down muscle tissue and then eating the protein to build that back up, what happens is I'm in my calorie deficit, I lose my water weight, I lose my muscle glycogen, I continue to basically break down muscle tissue. It becomes easier for your body to break down muscle tissue and use that as glucose and give you energy through that channel versus mobilizing fat, and your body will basically hang on to fat. So you get in a situation where it's just, you're not gonna continue to lose fat just by staying in a calorie deficit. Otherwise, it wouldn't be this hard, right? People would just eat less calories than they burn and they would lose weight. It's not that simple, right? So you're eating at a deficit, you're doing strength training, you're also eating enough protein so your body is actually able to break down and rebuild and refuel that muscle. And now, even though we're staying like in a calorie deficit, we're actually able to maintain the muscle mass that we have, and we're actually able to get into those fat stores. You can't do that forever. Eventually, you have to go back into like a calorie surplus, and then you can go back into the deficit again. But if we're eating protein and we're doing strength training, we're able to keep muscle mass and even build new muscle mass while we're losing fat. We've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. We have case study after case study of seeing it prove it. If you just do cardio, you're not going to build any muscle doing low intensity stuff, you're just going to continue to drop and your BMR is actually going to go down. So even though you can get away with losing a little bit of weight, you're not able to eat as much food. And then you have to drop your calories again as you continue to cut, and then you're eating less food, you're more tired, you're more miserable, the muscle mass drops even more. Eventually that reaches a point where you just cannot go any lower and continue to lose, and you will plateau out. And then most people feel like complete dog shit at that point, and they end up saying, screw this, I'm stuck. They're kind of getting skinny fat. They don't look any better because, to circle back around, to get bulky, you really have to eat a crap load of calories, pack on a ton of muscle, and most people are not built like that. It's pretty much up to your genetics and how your body's going to put on muscle and what shape you're going to be. But if you want that lean toned look that people most always are looking for, that comes from having more muscle. So in fact, it's not going to make you bulky. It's going to make you skinnier and stronger. Muscle weighs more than fat. So you might be a little bit heavier. Your weight might not drop as low as you think that you need it to, but your body composition, the way you appear, when people look at you, they will think that you're fit and skinny, and you'll have definition and maybe some vascularity, some veins. Those type of things come from doing strength training. So hopefully that makes sense. You cannot just run all day. Now, with that being said, I'm not under the camp that says cardio is a complete waste or it's stupid. Doing low intensity cardio and getting those steps in and going for like bike rides and runs, that definitely accelerates fat loss, especially if you're eating the right amount of protein and you're doing the strength training. Now you're starting to burn and your body's metabolic rate, your metabolism is working the way that it should. You're going to be pulling from stored fat when you're doing that low intensity exercise. So as long as you've healed your metabolism, you kind of gotten yourself eating the right amount for your body, now we can start to go into that deficit, and any extra, steps that we take, you will actually burn fat. So love me some low intensity cardio. You can't just go super hard all the time. So if you're training with weights, you're training high intensity, you're doing strength work, and then you supplement or complement that with a little bit of like leisurely cardio, I would call it, just living. Maybe go play with your kids, go on a bike ride, go on a hike. That's going to help you lose more fat. Hopefully that helps. Love you guys.